James Harker stood at attention outside the royal chambers, his back straight and eyes forward. He was the only human in a line of 8 Scythian guards, all taller than him by at least a foot. Their blue skin gleamed under the palace lights, while his pale human skin looked out of place, like a sore thumb. Human. Commander Vrex snapped as he walked past. Your helmet is tilted 2 degrees to the left. Fix it immediately. Yes, Commander, Harker said, adjusting his helmet. He had been on Cynthia for 6 months now, part of the first human-Cynthian military exchange program. 6 months of nitpicking, criticism, and barely hidden contempt. The Cynthians valued order above all else. Their empire had lasted for thousands of years because everyone knew their place and stayed in it. Humans, with their questions and adaptability, were seen as chaotic and unpredictable. When the royal procession approached, all guards snapped to perfect attention. Queen Zilith glided past, her long robes flowing behind her. She was followed by her husband, High Lord Calfax, who had just returned from a diplomatic mission to the rival Makari Empire. Something caught Harker's eye. As Calfax passed, the High Lord's fingers twitched in an unusual pattern. It was subtle, but Harker noticed one of the lower-ranking officials in the procession briefly nod in response. After their shift ended, Harker approached Grawl, another guard he had become friendly with. Did you notice anything odd about High Lord Calfax today? Harker asked, as they stored their ceremonial weapons. Grawl's face ridges flattened, the Cynthian equivalent of a frown. Odd? The High Lord behaved with perfect dignity, as always. His hand movements seemed like signals to someone in the procession. Grawl laughed, a sharp clicking sound. Humans and their wild imaginations. This is why your species is still confined to just a handful of planets. You see conspiracies everywhere. Harker didn't argue. But that night he wrote in his personal log. *Day 184 on Cynthia. High Lord Calfax returned from Makari negotiations. Observed unusual hand signals to junior official Tekla. Will monitor for pattern *. The next day, Harker was assigned to guard duty in the west wing of the palace. This was unusual. He was typically kept in the eastern quarters, away from sensitive areas. A scheduling error, perhaps. As he stood at his post, he observed High Lord Calfax meeting with 3 members of the Sphere of Eternal Truth, a religious group that Queen Zilith had banned from the palace a year ago for their extreme views. The men spoke in hushed tones, but Harker's translator picked up fragments. Preparations, the appointed time, and a new era. When they noticed him watching, they immediately fell silent. High Lord Calfax glared at him. Human, he said coldly, your duty is to guard, not to listen. Remember your place. My apologies, High Lord, Harker said with a bow. That evening, Harker learned that 4 of the Queen's personal servants had been reassigned to distant outposts, replaced by staff chosen by Calfax. When Harker mentioned this to Commander Vrex, the Cynthian dismissed his concerns. Staff assignments are not the concern of a lowly guard, especially a human one. Vrex said, perhaps we made a mistake including your kind in our guard at all. As Harker left Vrex's office, he saw High Lord Calfax watching him from the end of the hallway, his yellow eyes narrowed. Something is very wrong here, Harker thought. And I might be the only one who can see it, He would need evidence, solid, undeniable evidence, or nobody in this hierarchy-obsessed empire would ever believe a human's word over a High Lord's. Commander Vrex and his loyal guards secured the corridor and entered the Queen's chamber. They found Harker standing over the unconscious Calfax, with Princess Thalia now free. The traitor is subdued, Harker reported. Queen Zilith rushed to embrace her daughter. Thank the stars you're safe. But their relief was short-lived. An alarm suddenly blared throughout the palace. What's happening? The Queen demanded. A guard burst in. Your Majesty, the royal fleet, half the ships have raised shields and turned their weapons on the palace. They're demanding we release High Lord Calfax. Princess Thalia looked grim. He told me his plan while I was captive. The fleet commanders loyal to him were waiting for a signal. When he didn't give it, they activated the backup plan. We're surrounded, Commander Vrex said, checking the security monitors. And we don't know which soldiers in the palace are still loyal. Queen Zilith swayed slightly, still weak from the poison. How do we fight an enemy we cannot identify? Everyone looked lost, except Harker. The human was deep in thought. Your Majesty, he said finally, Xanthian military strategy relies on hierarchy and clear chains of command, correct? Yes, she replied. Each commander has precise orders to follow. That's their weakness, Harker said. Human warfare is different. We adapt. We improvise. He turned to the security monitors. Can you broadcast to all ships and palace guards at once? Yes, Vrex confirmed. Then I have a plan. 20 minutes later, Queen Zilith stood before a broadcast camera. She looked regal despite her weakened state. Harker and Commander Vrex stood beside her, with the unconscious Calfax at their feet. Attention all Xanthian forces, the Queen began. A plot against the throne has been uncovered and defeated. High Lord Calfax attempted to poison me and seize power. Immediately, the communication system exploded with responses from ship commanders, some declaring loyalty, others demanding Calfax's release. This was exactly what Harker had expected. As the commanders argued, Vrex's technicians trace each transmission, identifying which ships were loyal and which were part of the conspiracy. Harker leaned close to the Queen. Now, Your Majesty. The Queen raised her hand, silencing all transmissions. To prove my right to rule, I will now perform the royal challenge. A collective gasp came from the Xanthians. The royal challenge was an ancient tradition, rarely invoked, where the monarch personally faced threats to the throne. All loyal ships will stand down weapons, she commanded. Those who remain hostile in 1 minute will face royal judgment. Harker watched the monitors. One by one, most ships lowered their weapons, unwilling to directly challenge the Queen in the sacred royal challenge. Only 5 ships remained hostile. Those ships are now identified as traitors, Commander Vrex announced. All loyal forces target and disable them. The loyal ships, which outnumbered the rebels 3-1, surrounded the traitor vessels. The beauty of your culture's respect for tradition, Harker whispered to Princess Thalia, is that we can use it against those who would betray it. Within the palace, the same strategy worked. When faced with the royal challenge, most of Calfax's supporters surrendered rather than commit the cultural taboo of defying the challenge. In less than an hour, the rebellion was crushed. The traitor ships were disabled, their commanders arrested. Inside the palace, Vrex's loyal guards rounded up the remaining conspirators. In the command center, Queen Zilith turned to Harker. Your human strategy saved my throne, perhaps my empire. Harker bowed humbly. Your Majesty, humans may lack your advanced technology or long history, but we understand something vital about conflict. Sometimes the unexpected approach works best precisely because it is unexpected. As the Queen's doctors administered the antidote for the poison, Princess Thalia approached Harker. You fought differently than any Xanthian would. You didn't try to overpower enemies stronger than you. You outsmarted them. That's the human way, Harker replied. We adapt. We find new paths when the obvious ones are blocked. Commander Vrex, who had once despised Harker's human ways, now looked at him with newfound respect. Perhaps, he admitted reluctantly, there is something to learn from humans after all. The poison is designed to kill Xanthians, but look like natural illness, Harker explained quickly. It's from the Makari border region. High Lord Calfax has been giving it to the Queen slowly. The final dose will be tonight. Commander Vrex looked at the tea sample. If you're wrong, human, execution will be too kind a punishment. I'm not wrong. Test it yourself. The door burst open. 2 guards entered, weapons ready. Commander, we received your alert, one said. Vrex made a quick decision. Take this to the science division. Tell no one. He handed them the vial. "Then find Princess Thalia and bring her here, quietly." The guards left. Vrex turned to Harker. "If you're lying." "I'm not," Harker insisted. "The ceremony is tomorrow. Khalfax plans to kill the Queen and take control. He's made a deal with the Makari Empire." A guard returned 20 minutes later, looking shocked. "Commander, the test results. The human is right. It's Makari nerve toxin." Vrex's face paled. "And Princess Thalia?" "We can't find her, sir. High Lord Khalfax sent her to her chambers with guards we don't recognize." Vrex stood, suddenly decisive. "Arrest High Lord Khalfax immediately." "We can't," the guard said. "He's with the Queen and has his personal guards blocking all access. The ceremony preparations are already beginning." Harker spoke up. "There's another way to the Queen's chambers, through the maintenance tunnels. I can get there." Vrex looked at him with new respect. "You'll never get past the guards at her door." "I don't need to. I just need her to hear me before she drinks anything else." Vrex nodded slowly. "Go. We'll create a distraction to draw some guards away." Harker crawled through narrow tunnels, following the palace layout he had memorized during his months of service. He found a small vent that opened into a corridor near the Queen's private chamber. Looking out carefully, he saw guards he didn't recognize, Khalfax's men. The ceremony was set to begin in 1 hour, but servants were already rushing around with final preparations. Then he saw her, Queen Zilith, walking slowly toward her chamber, surrounded by attendants. She looked pale and weak. High Lord Khalfax walked beside her, speaking softly. In his hand was a small golden cup. Harker had one chance. He kicked open the vent and jumped down, surprising everyone in the corridor. "Stop," he shouted, running toward the Queen. Guards moved to intercept him. Harker dodged the first, slid under the grasp of a second, and jumped over a third who tried to tackle them. Humans were smaller but faster than Senthians. "Seize that human," Khalfax shouted. Harker reached within 10 feet of the Queen before guards surrounded him. As they grabbed his arms, he looked directly at Queen Zilith and shouted the words that would later become famous throughout the Empire. "Don't go into your chamber, Your Majesty. Your husband wants to kill you. The tea is poison." The corridor fell silent. Queen Zilith stared at Harker, then at the golden cup in Khalfax's hand. "What nonsense is this?" Khalfax demanded. "This human is clearly insane." "Then drink the tea yourself," Harker challenged, still struggling against the guards. The Queen raised her hand, silencing everyone. Though weak, her voice carried authority. "Release him." "My Queen," Khalfax protested, "this is a violation of all protocol." "I said release him," she repeated. The guards hesitantly let go of Harker. Queen Zilith looked at the human guard. "Explain yourself, quickly." Before Harker could speak, Commander Vrex rushed into the corridor with his loyal guards. "My Queen, we have proof. The tea contains Makari poison." Khalfax's face twisted with rage. He looked at the cup in his hand, then at the Queen. In that moment, everyone saw the truth in his eyes. 1 month later, the Grand Hall of the Xenthian Palace was filled with dignitaries from across the Empire. Queen Zilith, fully recovered from the poison, sat on her throne. Today was a special ceremony, one that would change the Empire forever. Harker stood at attention in his new uniform. It was no longer the simple outfit of a low-ranking guard, but the formal dress of a royal advisor. He still felt strange in it. The Queen raised her hand, and the hall fell silent. "Today, we honor those who saved not just my life, but the future of our empire," she announced. "We also mark a new chapter in our history." Princess Thalia stood beside her mother, smiling proudly. Commander Vrex, now promoted to Royal Security Chief, stood at attention nearby. "James Harker, step forward," the Queen commanded. Harker approached the throne and knelt, as he had been taught. "Rise," said the Queen. "Your human perspective spotted what our Xenthian eyes could not see. Your different way of thinking revealed a plot that our rigid traditions blinded us to. She gestured to a group of humans in the audience, ambassadors from Earth who had arrived yesterday. For centuries, the Scythian Empire has believed our ways superior to all others. We saw differences as weaknesses. We were wrong. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Such words from a Xanthian queen were unprecedented. Today, I create a new division within our government, the Office of Alternative Strategy. James Harker will lead this office, bringing human insight to our most important decisions. Harker bowed his head. I am honored, Your Majesty. Furthermore, the Queen continued, I have signed a new treaty with Earth. We will expand our exchange programs tenfold. Humans will serve in our fleet, our government, and our scientific institutions. In return, Scythians will study on Earth. Many in the crowd looked shocked. Some seemed unhappy. Change was always difficult. Commander Vrex stepped forward. As someone who once doubted the value of human ways, I now stand corrected. The plot against our queen might have succeeded if not for human insight. Our empire grows stronger through diversity, not sameness. Princess Thalia spoke next. When we first accepted humans into our guard, many called it a foolish experiment. That experiment saved my mother's life and our empire. Perhaps it is time for more such experiments. After the ceremony, Harker found himself in the palace garden with Princess Thalia. How does it feel to be the first human royal advisor? She asked. Harker smiled. Strange. 1 month ago, I was the lowest-ranking guard. Now generals and ministers ask for my opinion. They should. Your different perspective sees what we miss. That's the real lesson here, Harker said, looking up at the stars. No species has all the answers. Scythians have amazing technology and social order. Humans have adaptability and creative thinking. Together, we're stronger than either alone. Princess Thalia nodded. My mother says that for thousands of years, we thought strength came from consistency. Everyone thinking and acting the same way. Now we know true strength comes from diversity of thought. Across the garden, they saw High Commander Vrex training with a mixed group of Xanthian and human guards. The humans were teaching the Xanthians unpredictable fighting moves, while the Xanthians showed the humans precise defensive formations. Look at them, Thalia said, neither abandoning their strengths, but each learning from the other. In the evening sky above the palace, the first joint Xanthian-human space patrol flew in formation. The ships moved with both Xanthian precision and human creativity, forming patterns never seen before. A new era begins, Harker said quietly. And it started with 6 simple words. Don't go into your chamber, Thalia quoted with a smile. Your husband wants to kill you. Words that had changed an empire forever. The old library wing was dusty and dim. Harker arrived early and checked for hidden watchers before Princess Thalia appeared, wearing this simple robe with a hood. Did anyone follow you? Harker asked. No, she said. I used the servants' passages. Now, tell me what you know. Harker showed her his notebook. Your stepfather has been meeting secretly with people who shouldn't be in the palace. He's replacing loyal staff with his own people, and last night, I caught him sending an encrypted message. Thalia's face ridges paled. Can you break the encryption? Xanthian security systems are advanced, but they have blind spots. Human hackers think differently. Harker pulled out his small device. I've been working on it all day. He connected the device to a forgotten data terminal in the corner of the library. Lines of code flashed across the screen. Xanthian encryption relies on mathematical patterns, Harker explained. But it doesn't account for random human chaos. Sometimes simpler is better. After 20 minutes of work, fragments of the message appeared on screen. Final dose. Royal ceremony. 3 days. Throne will be. New alliance with Makari. Thalia gasped. The grand alignment ceremony is in 3 days. Mother will perform the traditional blessing. Everyone in the royal family will be there. The perfect time to strike. Harker said grimly. The tea you mentioned, I think he's been slowly poisoning her, weakening her. The final dose will kill her during the ceremony. We must tell Commander Vrex, Thalia said. He won't believe us without solid proof. We need a sample of the tea. Thalia straightened her shoulders. I can get that. Mother keeps it in her private chamber. Be careful, Harker warned. If Colfax suspects. A noise from outside made them both freeze. Footsteps approached. Hide, Thalia whispered, pushing Harker behind a large bookshelf. The door opened. Commander Vrex entered with 2 guards. Princess Thalia, Vrex said, bowing. What are you doing in this forgotten place? Researching old traditions for the ceremony, she replied smoothly. Why are you here, Commander? Security sweep. There have been concerns about the human guard making unauthorized inquiries. Have you seen him? Thalia's face remained calm. No. Should I be concerned? Not at all, Your Highness. Just routine security. Vrex looked around suspiciously. If you see him, please inform me immediately. After they left, Harker emerged from hiding. They're looking for me. I need to be careful. Meet me tomorrow at midday by the garden fountain, Thalia said. I'll have the tea sample. The next morning, Harker was summoned to Commander Vrex's office. His heart pounded as he entered. Human. Vrex said coldly. Explain this. He pushed a data pad across his desk. On it was a security image of Harker entering the communications center the night Colfax had sent his message. I was checking a security alert. Harker lied. There was no alert. You accessed classified communications. This is treason. Commander, with respect, I discovered something important. High Lord Colfax sent an encrypted. Silence. Vrex slammed his fist on the desk. You dare accuse the High Lord. Based on what? Your primitive human suspicions. Check the tea he gives the Queen, Harker said desperately. I believe it contains poison. Vrex's face darkened. You are relieved of duty, effective immediately. Surrender your weapons and uniform. You will be confined to quarters until deportation back to Earth. As guards escorted him out, Harker realized he wouldn't make his meeting with Princess Thalia. The clock was ticking. The ceremony was only 2 days away. And now he was trapped. Harker paced in his quarters. The door was locked from the outside. His weapons and communicator were gone. Through the small window, he could see the garden fountain where Princess Thalia would be waiting for him. But he couldn't reach her. Think, James, he muttered to himself. What would a human do that a Xanthian wouldn't expect? He examined the room carefully. Xanthians were tall with rigid bodies. They couldn't bend or squeeze like humans could. The air vent near the ceiling was small. Too small for a Xanthian, but maybe just big enough for him. Using the legs of his bed, Harker made a simple tool to remove the vent cover. Then he climbed up and squeezed himself into the narrow space. It was tight, but he could move. Following the air system, he crawled through dusty tunnels until he found an exit near the royal gardens. Checking that no guards were watching, he dropped down behind a large bush. Princess Thalia was sitting by the fountain, trying to look calm. Harker approached carefully, staying hidden behind plants. Princess, he whispered. She turned, surprised. Harker, I heard you were arrested. Confined to quarters, he corrected. But humans are good at escaping. Did you get the tea? She nodded and handed him a small vial. I took it this morning. But there's more news. The ceremony has been moved up to tomorrow. Mother is too weak to argue against it. Harker's face darkened. We're running out of time. We need to test this tea. How? The Royal Lab technicians all report to Colfax now. Harker smiled. I don't need a lab. During Earth military training, we learned basic poison detection. I just need a few supplies. They moved to an unused gardener's shed. Harker mixed the tea with different substances he found there. Plant extracts, cleaning solutions, and mineral deposits. On Earth, Many poisons change color when mixed with certain substances, he explained as he worked. After several tests, one mixture turned bright purple. There, he said grimly. This reaction only happens with a specific type of poison. It wouldn't harm Xanthians immediately, but with repeated doses, it would weaken them slowly, Thylia finished. Like what's happening to Mother. And a large dose would be fatal, Harker added. We need to show this to someone with authority. Commander Vrex won't believe us, Thylia said. Maybe not me, but he might believe you, especially with this evidence. As they left the shed, 2 royal guards appeared. Princess Thylia, one said, bowing. High Lord Calthax requests your presence immediately. Thylia glanced at Harker, who was hiding behind the shed door. Of course, she said. I'll come right away. Once they left, Harker emerged. He needed a new plan. If Calthax suspected Thylia, she might be in danger too. He made a decision. Sneaking back through the palace using service corridors and air vents, he made his way to Commander Vrex's office. The commander was alone, reviewing security plans. Human, Vrex shouted when Harker appeared. How did you escape? Guards. Wait. Harker held up the vial of tea. Test this. It's the tea High Lord Calthax gives the Queen. I can prove it contains poison. More wild accusations. Guards. Why would I risk coming here if I didn't have proof? Harker asked desperately. What if I'm right? Would you let your queen die because you were too proud to listen to a human? Vrex paused, his hand on his weapon. You have 1 minute to explain. Outside, heavy footsteps approached. Time was running out. For the next week, Harker kept his eyes open and his mouth shut. He started keeping a small notebook hidden in his quarters, writing down everything strange he noticed about High Lord Calthax and his allies. Monday, Calthax meets with Captain Zorn of the Royal Fleet. Captain leaves looking worried. Tuesday, 3 more of Queen's loyal staff replaced. All new staff have connections to Calthax's home province. Wednesday, Calthax disappears for 4 hours. No record of where he went. The pattern was becoming clear, but Harker needed more. No Xanthian would believe his word against the High Lords without solid proof. On Thursday, Harker was assigned to night duty outside the palace communication center. Most guards hated this boring post, but Harker saw an opportunity. Near midnight, the door slid open. High Lord Calthax emerged, looking around carefully before walking away. He hadn't noticed Harker standing in the shadows. Once Calthax was gone, Harker slipped into the communication center. The night operator, a young Xanthian named Lith, jumped in surprise. What are you doing here, human? This area is restricted. Harker smiled. Commander Vrex sent me to check the security protocols. The Queen is concerned about information leaks. This was a lie, but Harker had learned that lower-ranking Xanthians never questioned orders they believed came from above. Of course, Lith said, standing up. I'll step outside to give you privacy. Once alone, Harker quickly checked the communication logs. There it was, a transmission sent 5 minutes ago to a location in the Makari border region. It was heavily encrypted, but the system showed it had been sent using High Lord Calthax's personal access code. Harker didn't have time to break the encryption now, but he copied the data to a small device he carried. This might be the evidence he needed. The next morning, Harker was eating alone in the guards' dining hall when Princess Thylia approached his table. The Queen's daughter from her first marriage was known for her curiosity about other species. May I join you, Guard Harker? She asked, surprising everyone in the room. Of course, Your Highness, Harker replied, standing quickly. As she sat, she spoke quietly. I've noticed you watching my stepfather carefully. You see something wrong, don't you? Harker hesitated. Was this a trap? I'm just doing my duty, Your Highness. Please, she said, her voice even lower. I've noticed changes too. Mother is getting weaker each day, but the royal doctors say nothing is wrong. It makes no sense. Harker thought carefully before speaking. Has the High Lord been bringing her special tea or food? Thelia's eyes widened. Yes, a special tea from his homeland. He says it will strengthen her. When did she start drinking it? After his return from the McCurry negotiations. How did you know? Harker's mind raced. In human history, poison was a common way to remove royalty. But Xanthians considered such methods dishonorable and never used them. They wouldn't even think to test for poison. Your Highness, I have concerns, but I need more evidence. The encrypted message I found. Princess Thelia tensed. We can't talk here. Too many ears. Meet me in the old library wing at sunset. It's rarely used these days. After she left, Commander Vrex approached, his face ridges dark with anger. What did the princess want with you, human? She was curious about Earth customs, Commander, Harker lied smoothly. Vrex stared at him suspiciously. Remember your place, human. You are the lowest rank in the Royal Guard. If I find you spreading rumors or causing trouble. He left the threat hanging. As Vrex walked away, Harker noticed one of Colfax's new staff watching him closely. The web was tightening around him, but he had to continue. The Queen's life might depend on it. Lies! Colfax shouted, dropping the golden cup. The liquid spilled across the floor, sizzling on the marble. This is a human plot against me. Secure him, Queen Zilith ordered. Her royal guards moved toward Colfax. But Colfax was ready. He pressed a hidden button on his wristband. Suddenly, half the guards in the corridor turned their weapons on the other half. Now, Colfax shouted. His loyal guards formed a protective circle around him. Traitors! Commander Vrex bellowed, drawing his weapon. Chaos erupted in the corridor. Guards fought guards. Servants screamed and ran. Protect the Queen, Harker shouted, diving toward Queen Zilith as laser fire erupted around them. He pushed her behind a large column as shots flew past. My daughter, the Queen gasped. Thelia, he has her. Where? Harker asked, peeking around the column to assess the situation. My private chamber. He said she was preparing a surprise for the ceremony. Harker's blood ran cold. Thelia was likely a hostage or worse. Commander Vrex fought his way toward them, his uniform scorched from near misses. My queen, we must get you to safety. No, she said firmly. I will not run while my daughter is in danger. Colfax and his guards were retreating down the corridor toward the Queen's chamber, firing as they went. He's heading for Princess Thelia, Harker said. The Queen looked at Harker with desperate eyes. Save her, human. Please. Harker nodded. I'll need a distraction. Commander Vrex barked orders to his loyal guards. Concentrate fire on the left side. Draw their attention. As Vrex's guards created a diversion, Harker slipped away from the column and ran along the wall. While the Xanthians focused on the firefight, he sprinted past the battle, rolled under a decorative table, and came up behind Colfax's rear guard. Using surprise to his advantage, Harker disabled 2 guards before they knew he was there. The human fighting techniques were unknown to Xanthians, and therefore hard to defend against. Ahead, Colfax had reached the door to the Queen's chamber. He was entering a code to unlock it. Stop, Harker shouted, running toward him. Colfax turned, his face twisted with hatred. He pulled out a weapon and fired at Harker. The shot missed by inches. Harker kept coming. Colfax fired again and again, but Harker moved unpredictably, zigzagging in a way no Xanthian could. One shot grazed his arm, burning through his uniform, but he didn't slow down. Just as Colfax opened the door, Harker launched himself forward in a desperate tackle. Both of them tumbled into the Queen's chamber. Inside, Princess Thelia was tied to a chair, a gag in her mouth. Her eyes widened when she saw Harker. Colfax recovered quickly, kicking Harker hard in the stomach. The human rolled away, gasping for breath. You've ruined everything. Colfax raged, standing over Harker. We could have had a new empire, stronger, more powerful. By betraying your queen. Harker wheezed, trying to get up. Politics, human. something your simple mind couldn't understand. Calfax raised his weapon for a killing shot. The Makari would have given me more power than Zilith ever could. And that's why you'll lose, Harker said, suddenly lunging upward. His human reflexes were faster than Calfax expected. Harker grabbed Calfax's wrist, twisting the weapon away. They struggled, crashing into royal furniture. Calfax was stronger, but Harker was quicker. He couldn't overpower the Xanthian, but he could outsmart him. When Calfax charged at him, Harker sidestepped at the last second. The High Lord crashed into a large mirror, shattering it. Before he could recover, Harker brought a heavy vase down on Calfax's head. The High Lord collapsed, unconscious. Harker rushed to free Princess Thalia. "Are you hurt?" he asked, removing her gag. "No," she said, rubbing her wrists as he untied her. "But he's been planning this for months. It's bigger than just the Queen. He has allies throughout the fleet."